Elevator music.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is a good time to start. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Really excited to kick off our first AEP platform and apps user group session. Um, Love that we're able to do this virtually, especially on a lousy day like today in the New York area. Um, I think what we'll do is we'll kind of kick off with a quick agenda. We'll do some quick introductions for myself and Karthik, and then we'll dive into content. So, hi everybody. My name's Tom Capone. I'm currently the technical lead for the Martech org at Subway. Um, we have a dual headquarters in Shelton, Connecticut, and Miami, Florida. I'm out of the Shelton, Connecticut branch. And maybe a quick background for me: I started my AJO AEP journey a little over 2 years ago. We had a project at Subway where we moved from an existing offers platform over to AJO as our primary offers provider and loyalty orchestrator. And I got brought on 2 years ago to make that happen. So um, all things AEP, AJO have really been my focus area for the most part. Getting my hands dirty with the RT side of the house more recently, and really looking forward to meeting some of you guys and having an opportunity to talk shop. Um, I think a great thing about this user group is we get to meet a lot of like-minded people and folks in the industry that maybe we don't have to beat around the bush with some of the Adobe stuff. So I think it's a great opportunity to not only network with our peers here, but you know, let's use this user group to talk shop and help each other through solutions and help each other through ideas or requirements or anything like that. So that's my quick elevator pitch. I'll kick it over to Karthik here. Go ahead, Karthik.
Thanks, thanks, Tom. Hey, everyone. My name is Karthik. I'm the senior manager at Macy's, leading some of the AEP platform work, helping building data pipelines and strategy that makes everything possible in AJO and CJA. AEP is truly the real foundation, and with that, we've scaled to over 100 plus power users and have launched 20 or so personalization journeys across email, app, SMS, and paid media. And so, in all the experience in the last 2 to 3 years, what I've learned is success comes from cleaner data, and AEP being so complex, always having the proper handoffs, racy conversations from the very beginning, and also learning from peers and sharing lessons rather openly has brought in a lot of success. And so essentially this is why the community exists, so that we can swap real world experiences, connect with Adobe, and make the journey smoother for all of us. And so with that, so Tom, who's the first speaker? Would that be Tarun? You could hand
Yeah.
that off
So
to
yeah. So we're actually gonna start with David Ross and Dinesh
David. And
Sharma.
okay,
So
all right.
just to talk quickly about agenda for our time today. So um, we just did our quick and dirty intro for the user group. We have featured speakers for some great topics today. So David Ross and Dinesh Sharma are going to do a deep dive on FAC, and then we're going to follow that up with some best practices on CDP implementation and strategy from Tarun Kumar. I won't speak for them. I'll let them kick things off. So we'll have time for Q&A in between content, and we're going to do kind of a final closeout towards the end. We have a great survey to get some feedback from you guys, and we'll do a closing Q&A and get a sense of what we want to do for our first in-person session. So without further ado, David and Dinesh, if you guys want to take the screen and kick things off for the FAC content, I think the floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Let me see if I can. I know last time I clicked slideshow here, it popped up on your screen. So let's see if it does the same again. Let me see.
Yeah, looks good.
You guys can see it when I do that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, thanks, Tom. So as mentioned previously,
Are you sharing your screen still?
I think try one more time, David, because I was still coming off of share. Oh gosh, did we lose David?
I think we lost him.
I'm still here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, 10-4.
Okay.
Just came back.
I'm gonna try this again. Can you guys? Now you guys can see, I would imagine, right?
There
Yeah.
we go.
Yep.
Okay. Can you keep doing this? All right. Just present from here. I don't know why it keeps going to my other.
Yeah, that's fine,
Just
David.
as I
Yeah.
Does that work? Yeah. So again, sorry for the technical difficulty there for a minute. But as Tom mentioned, myself and Dinesh are going to speak a little bit here on federated audience composition. Yeah, quickly I'll give a little bit of an about us. I'll go first here. So like I said, I'm David Ross. I'm a senior business consultant at TAP CXM. I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I would like to say that I'm an Adobe expert on AEP and RTCDP specifically. I was the 2024 RTCDP Experience Cloud Community Member of the Year, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically I just try to answer a lot of questions on the community. Definitely not the best at it all the times, but I at least try to get all the questions and see where I can help answer. So I'll let Dinesh jump in there for a second as well.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dinesh, based out of New York. Here at TAP, I'm actually working as a senior technical consultant, technical architect, depending on the projects, wearing different hats some days. Trying to help clients wherever we can, like as a developer, as an architect, designing solutions, trying to make sure that we have got things done. Have got extensive experience on Adobe Campaign, AJO, RTCDP, a bit of analytics and target as well. And then lately, I've started to play a lot with the workflow fusion automation. If people have started using that in the market, I'm not sure. Just fun to kind of play along. Yeah, that's about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Dinesh. Yeah, so let's kind of just cover the basics here for a minute. So what is FAC? So I think most people probably have a good understanding that are on this call here, but federated audience composition is essentially just a way to enable your audiences and enrich your audiences using outside external data warehouses. Specifically in the use case we're going to talk about, it's coming from Amazon Redshift. So why is this important? Obviously, this kind of changes how audiences can be built. It's faster time to audience, so you don't have like a full ingestion required. Cost optimization obviously helps out there as well. You can get fresher, richer data with all the same downstream benefits. So yeah, kind of a basic understanding of FAC. Essentially why it matters. So there's some challenges with AEP prior to using FAC. So the main one being that everything has to be translated pre-ingestion. You kind of lose the fidelity with many-to-many relationships, and everything needs to be at more of a profile level, obviously, to stitch the identity graph together. So the solution with FAC is we can federate those joins, and everything can be potentially at least for our use case example, at the account or location level. Compliance, all the attributes reside inside AEP, whereas through FAC, you're going to have minimal attributes in AEP, and most will be directly at the source. Segmentation-wise, you have to basically go off of the Unified Profile Store and the Global Segment Evaluation Job. Through FAC, that does still happen, but it potentially can be avoided. The arrays and complex data, obviously, it's currently supported through AEP, just basic audience creation. But as of right now, I believe arrays are unsupported by FAC. And then from a customer view perspective, AEP could lack any like important external data, just from being that it could be difficult to pull it into the platform, or it might just be a bit of a hassle to get it in just for the specific use case. Whereas using FAC, it gives you the ability to combine that data to enrich your profiles and hopefully have some faster segmentation through there. So next, we kind of talk about the architectural flow, and I'll definitely let Dinesh here dive into this one. But I will say that one of the biggest opportunities we've seen with FAC so far has been one of our clients who's a big telecom space dealing with prospect data. So that's essentially location-based data, and I'll let Dinesh kind of walk through the architectural flow of how that works in FAC.
Yep, sure. So, as David just mentioned, right, like the advantage of FAC here is typically like, let's say, when you have to manage data at multiple level, more than profile identity grain, like it's like it just in simple words, right? It basically allows all of the data, like let's say heavy lifting and things to be done at the redshift or like basically at a data warehouse or a data lake level where it actually should be done. And at the same time, it kind of gives us the freedom, like AEP gives us, the freedom of decisioning and activation plane, right? So that's that in a nutshell, like how I and like the clients that I've been working with kind of look at FAC today. However, like a little bit more about the primary client that we have implemented FAC quite a lot, and this has been like since 2024. I would say once the feature was announced in Summit, like this has been something that have been on top of their head, and they've been kind of thinking a lot about implementing FAC and making the best out of it, right? Because earlier everything was ingested within Adobe, I mean AEP platform, and then segmentation was happening and things like that. But at the same time, there were challenges like such as fidelity loss. So like our customer has got roughly around one like 100 million, 120 million kind of customer base. So the client is actually like one of the bigger customer where they not only deal with the telecom space, as in let's say the traditional cable connection, but also they have like like fun parks, and they also now have like a premium connections of OTT platforms and things like that. So they're typically like a conglomerate. Like I would now actually call them as a conglomerate where they actually kind of do a lot of stuff which has multiple experiences with the customer and not just like at one single level, right? So the primary use case, or like the primary driver of this use case, like as a pilot project that we started doing, was more on like, as David just mentioned, like there was a location where like let's say you are now as a customer like would want to like have their services in a new location, right? So first what they do is, again, the usual fuzzy match where like if you're a customer, a former customer or not, or like if you're truly a prospect and things like that. And then later on, like digging into further where if the location is actually ready, like service ready or not, and things like that. So here the actual segmentation was happening more at a like, even though the targeting was at a customer level or a an individual account level, like let's say sorry, individual contact level as they call it as, but the whole segmentation was done at at a very high level where it's mainly like location based. And other than this, right, so they had challenges where like while they were translating account to customers and things like that, they were losing roughly around like 500K, or like I would say more than that sometimes. So they already had like the business was always kind of frustrated that they were not able to kind of target customers that are on different grains, and they were losing it when the fuzzy match or the logic of like an end-to-end relationship where it was like we have to go and select like a primary account holder and things like that, and versus like one customer being a primary account holder of multiple kind of line of business and things like that, right? So that is where the idea of FAC was fascinating for our customer. Like that was the biggest challenge that they were actually trying to resolve. And what we started to do, right, like along with the team that was there on the client side, like all of the data architects actually sat together and decided, okay, what is that what we can keep outside of the platform at the first place. And that is that is one of the important things when you look at like FAC as the possible implementation going forward. And what we decided was to kind of like we had actually multiple data models developed. So the way whole FAC actually works is that first you have to kind of develop a, let's say, location centric data model, or like, let's say, like we had account centric data model, we had MDU centric data model. MDU is basically a multiple distribution unit. That is nothing but like an apartment building and things like that. So we had such kind of data model developed, and then we connected that data model to AEP RTCDP at the end of the day, and we looked at the use cases where the like we were either facing challenges before, or we looked at situations where like there was a lot of loss of data happening while the translation was taking place. So all of that being kept in mind, like there was another Redshift instance. So our client technically uses Redshift, so they basically decided to go ahead and kind of stand another Redshift instance to kind of play around in the lower environment. It's not the best practices always to jump onto like, let's say, the um, directly onto like the production instance and do changes, right? We all have probably when we started when the entire RDCDP implementation started, there was a lot of like workaround where people used to actually treat that as a data lake and dump all of their data and not think of like the actual use cases, and then end up realizing, oh, we have actually got issues where the data storages are getting full, or the UPS is taking longer, or like the UPS is actually kind of the license is there and the GSC is kind of taking longer as expected, and stuff like that, right? So that is where we actually decided along with the client where what should be like, what set of use cases should be treated as pilot use case. So today the the whole presentation that we are doing is trying to keep it more at a business and a little bit of a technical level as well, where we are trying to cover what exactly we did like as one of the starting pilot projects. And now I'm glad to say that instead of starting on with like, we literally started actually utilizing FAC like 4 or 5 months ago, and today we are at a case where all of the new audience development, all of the new segmentation that needs to happen is actually done using FAC itself. Like they are utilizing only the profile grain when required, and all of the targeting is being done there, and then the activation is also kind of going on smooth on the downstream systems such as V8, like Adobe Campaign version 8 and AJO as well. So that being said, David, can we go back to slide 7? So
Yep.
as David kind of highlighted a couple of things there, which is, like there is an option called as fast export, which basically helps us avoid the entire United Profile Store and the identity service use of Adobe, Experience Platform. We have all been in that stage where we have had challenges where like because of the batch evaluation, it used to take an overnight kind of delays in actually activation and things like that. But this specific use case which we have kind of achieved here is because we were actually utilizing the option of audience enrichment, and that helped us a lot to make sure that the activation is or the segmentation is happening on demand technically. So for people who are familiar with an Adobe Campaign background or have used Adobe Campaign and have not used or not seen FAC yet, what basically it does is that it allows the or if you've actually used the audience composition feature within AEP, where there was a like a standard limit of 10 per sandboxes, and that's why that was not one of the common things that the customers were using quite a lot. But here the advantage is, right, so you have something called as like an audience composition that you can develop, which is nothing but very similar to like a workflow sort of a screen where you first go and connect to, like, let's say your source, you pick up the data that you want. You're also able to see like what data is flowing between systems, as in when I say system, sorry, between activities and things like that. And then you finally go ahead and kind of store your audience into like as a particular audience, right? And then while you're trying to read the data, it also creates a data set. Like it is all it's trying to store a lot of metadata around it rather than storing the actual information. So those are the things that we kind of learned while we were trying to implement a lot of things around. And then we had like regular catch-ups with Adobe where we were giving active feedbacks in terms of how the like the feature can be utilized better and things like that. Like Adobe was very flexible and kind of taking our feedback and potentially coming up with upcoming kind of, for example, the arrays was one of the issues that we were facing quite a lot, because when you talk about the power of RTCDP, right? Like so and then there are multiple products when some customer has, or like a transaction based data where they have got multiple products in their cart, and those kind of things. Like we they have promised that it will be available soon, and it's not like we don't have a final date yet, but Adobe has been very, very helpful in that. Then moving on to like the fast evaluation here, right? Like there is actually like the way we kind of discovered this. Initially, we were thinking that we could potentially avoid the use of identity service or the UPS completely and try and implement it. However, while we were like actually working on it, and while we were looking at like the initial behavior of the platform, it turned out to be that it was taking much longer than expected, and it was kind of you know. Like there were times where we actually like as we all know, right, like Adobe is like I mean AEP was sometimes taking like longer time, and we had to open tickets and stuff like that, which was there. And then we actually realized that it was probably something that we were doing wrong, and which was nothing but there was an option called as after segment evaluation. Like if you use a full export of an audience, and if people are familiar with the audience activation realm overall, and if you use the segment of like if you export the entire audience, and if you use the after segment evaluation option there specifically on that screen, then you will be able to actually avoid a lot of UPS and the identity service hop there, and then your data would be like you can go ahead and actually make things or I mean, activate the audiences much faster as before, right? And then there's always a normal option that's available as well. If you're going for an incremental export, there will be like a GSC that will, again come in picture. It will go through the regular route of FAC and things like that. So, yep. Now I think we can go to the learnings.
Yeah, definitely. I think we kind of started talking about it. That's why I jumped ahead there, Dinesh. But yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit a lot of these things we were speaking on before, right?
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, right? So there was one particular thing that stand out during the entire implementation of the whole FAC model, and like there are a couple of things that we kind of would recommend, going forward to someone who's kind of taking that journey for the first time. Like yes, it allows a lot of like let's say access to like a lot of different grains of data, but at the same time, the challenges might be that you do not want to treat AEP as the center of your actually I mean source of truth. It is actually like center of segment evaluation, or like you should do your segmentation basically. But for the data that does not, like Adobe is not producing it, you should not like you should be careful while you're doing activations there. So our client particularly was kind of very much focused on like what sort of data is being translated, like and what data is being kind of transferred over from like AEP to different platforms and things like that. Versus like for example, like there is a like beyond the personalization data, right? Like if there is anything that is required, then the source should be providing it. Like and then we used to only share IDs between the platforms rather than sharing the entire information, because AEP is not sometimes the source of truth of that particular data, right? And then the other thing, right, while we were evaluating the whole Redshift realm, like the cost was one of the things that also was, was on top of the mind of my customer, where what they were trying to do is evaluate like what are the ways that, we could potentially just, do we go with the regular, S3 route where we develop views on top of it, and or should we actually go ahead, with the Parquet route where we use the iceberg method to actually just query, or if Adobe is supporting that or not. And there were a lot of questions that were there, but we eventually went with the Parquet route, and it helped a lot in terms of the the actual cost of implementation when it comes down to looking at like let's say doing evaluations and things like that. It's much faster. It helps to kind of just go ahead and evaluate that, or basically just go ahead and kind of query that particular attribute rather than querying the entire row for you. So those kind of things were, kind of something that we thought maybe would be helpful for someone who's going through the route for the first time. And then, post implementation, right, as I just mentioned, like the activation is something that has to be, kind of closely observed and considered as well, because they like today, like there are guardrails that you can implement within AEP, but when it comes to FAC sort of data, right? So everybody has a different, kind of view towards like the way of they look at the data, and it could be sometimes if the marketers or the business users have the freedom of directly exporting the data, they might be exporting in information that might not be required and things like that, which could technically create some technical debt around it. So having guardrails around like the whole activation realm was also something that was kind of a key takeaway for us. All right.
Yeah, kind of think that sums it all up, Dinesh. So yeah, I think that's all we had to show today. We left a little bit of time for questions as well. If anyone wants to pose any, I didn't see any in the Q&A themselves, but if
I
there
think
are any.
first of all, great job, guys. That was some awesome content. I do see quite a few actually questions in the Q&A. Maybe it's a visibility thing, David. So I'm happy to call out a few, and then maybe we can, get some answers on the fly. That would be great.
I can
So,
also see it, Tom, on the side.
okay, great. Dinesh, if you want to roll with it, go ahead.
Sure. So, Saurabh, I'll take your question. How does the segmentation latency be avoided? I have seen wait for segmentation engine to be evaluated to get the latest realized count for the FAC audience if I'm using the audience in Journey. So that is exactly what I was trying to, kind of mention as one of the examples where we also learned it, which is basically if you try and export or, like during the exportation, while you're trying to set up the data exports, and at that point of time, if you select that option which is called as okay, I may be missing some few words here. Give me 1 second. I'll actually go to the screen. Yeah. So after segment evaluation, and if you do like a full export, like that actually helps you avoid the entire GSC and IS route. I'm happy to kind of share details offline if you're looking for more there. All right. Let's see.
I see the question, Dinesh, about from Kishore about getting access to FAC. Do we need additional license costs? I'm not sure on that one, actually. I don't know how they license that now.
Yeah, the license cost around, I mean, I would not actually technically comment on the license, but yes, you need to have like certain, is it the prime or the ultimate offering? I'm kind of forgetting between the two, but like you have to have like that level of, if you're using it in AJO, it has to be prime or ultimate, either of the two. And even within an RDCDB as well, the prime or ultimate offering that comes along from the Adobe side, that is the offering, that offers FAC as a feature. So again, cost and everything, we are not really sure about like those things, like how much does it cost, but yeah, that's what the documentation says.
I think I'll add there too, Dinesh. Completely appreciate that lots of folks are going to have licensing questions. We're not Adobe, so I think the thing to keep in mind there is every client's a little bit different, and the license that you may have for certain products may bake in, other features or other considerations. FAC is, at least from what I've seen, a add-on to certain licenses or certain packages. I hate to deflect, but like it really is on a client by client basis. So, make sure that you consult with your CSMs or your technical support leads on what may or may not be a consideration there for licensing for your team. But I think Dinesh, you kind of nailed it. That's what I've seen as well.
Yeah. And then also, next time when we have this in-person event, I'm, in the Adobe office, there might be someone who would be able to help you to answer those licensing questions particularly, right? Now I'll take one more question, and then we'll try and answer the questions offline for the rest. Is that does that permit, like in terms of the time? Tom, does that work?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think the other thing too is we're actually okay on time for at least the moment. If you want to take two more even, I think that's very doable.
Sounds good. So Vivek, I'll take your question. Can we say FAC is truly a zero copy architecture, or we still need to rely on CDP data for activation? Also, can we club FAC with existing clickstream events or build audience? Yes. I'll take one like first part of the question first. So the way we have seen, right, like there are actually multiple use cases where you can use FAC, and like our client actually loves the part of like audience creation and audience enrichment, but there is also like a part where you can actually have like so audience creation actually like answers your first question, which is nothing but it helps you kind of directly rely on the FAC architecture and sort of avoid the whole CDP activation. I mean, it like the activation would be done from CDP. Sorry, so like we still need to like the whole CDP data that I think you're trying to ask in terms of the profile attributes and things like that. And if you have got data within the like let's say the data warehouse, which you would like to just use that for activation, then the audience creation would actually like help you to kind of do that. Then also, can we club FAC with existing? Yes, you can club existing, audiences, or if you want to, like, existing clickstream and other event data, basically in simple terms. If you want to club that with your rules within, like, let's say FAC, that allows that feature. Yes, like we have a couple of audiences where we've used a combination of like both online and offline behavior of the customers.
Dinesh, I think the question too about enriching event data downstream, so that currently I don't believe can be done. It's FAC is profile only at this time. So that could be something that comes down the pipeline. But I know even from our client directly, like they've been wanting to be able to enrich event data, which we can't currently support.
Yeah, that's correct, David. As far as I know as well, we've had the same conversations on the Subway side. It's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
I will say this. That question comes up a lot on enrichment. Food for thought. Maybe there's an argument there that Adobe's looking at that more directly and trying to factor for that on future functionality. But that question does come up quite a bit.
Yeah, that alongside like the question we always seem to get, and maybe this isn't as much FAC, but just being able to export specific attributes per each audience. That's always been a big one as well. So, maybe something down the line comes with FAC and using FAC to export data, but that's something we'll have to see.
For sure. Okay. I did see a great question from Stephanie that I already responded to, but maybe just for visibility on the group. There was a...
It's Stefan.
Oh my gosh,
I get that very often. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think there's a question just in general, and maybe this answers a question for other folks, but when we talk about use cases for FAC, Dinesh alluded to this a little bit around, when is FAC the right move and when is FAC the wrong move, right? Stefan's question was specifically around real-time use cases. So it's going to depend on the requirements. I think for anybody that's actively using FAC, they probably already know that real-time considerations is really not what FAC is intended to do. And Dinesh spoke to that beautifully earlier on his last slide. So, I think if you take a step back and look at the requirements and say, all right, well, what does real time mean to your client, right? Or what does real time mean to the business? It's going to depend. So if we're talking about a 24-hour period and they're calling that near real time, well, now FAC is maybe in play. But I think it's if you think about real time use cases, you really want to rely on the back end of AEP to action on that information or action on that data, and use that as
even the edge network for all the real time events.
Exactly. Okay. Great questions, everybody. If we missed any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them into the survey at the end. I would love to use these questions as opportunities to build on these topics and kind of gauge the room for our in-person sessions, as well as you guys have a lot of the same questions, right? And we all do. So FAC is a hot topic right now, and
Yeah. And Tom, just want to add one point before we ramp up this. I mean, FAC is something. Yeah, hi Tom. FAC is like a hot topic because this is what we are experiencing right now. Like a lot of our teams don't want to create their data model in CDP again, right? So they have their entire data model in Snowflake, GCP, and everything, and they ask us every time why there is a need to create a schemas and everything, right? So that is I think a great move from Adobe, because there is the zero copy is kind of a hot topic right now in market, and no one wants to get the same effort to build everything in CDP. So yeah,
The
I
whole
think
composability topic around it, right? Like
like,
it's kind of one of the like big,
correct.
yeah.
Awesome. Good
Thanks,
feedback.
Anish. Thanks everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I think this is a good opportunity. We're good on time to springboard over to Tarun. Tarun's got some great stuff to show us on all things CDP. And Tarun, I'll hand it off to you to jump into that.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks everyone for joining in. We're going to be talking about building and scaling audience center of excellence. A little bit introduction about me. My name is Tarun, and I work at Proficient as a senior solution architect, specifically on the Adobe digital marketing practice. Been doing martech and digital transformations for around 15 years now. I have led multiple martech transformation projects across a lot of clients in my career so far. Some fun facts about me: I'm a stand-up comedian. At least I'm trying to be one. That's what I can say for now. I also love to solve cubes when I'm not doing anything else. Fun with audiences. So with that, I'd like to just dive into the agenda. We're going to be going over the vision of audience center of excellence, what it really means, and what it really intends to do for organizations who want to implement it, and how we can get alignment and collaboration to build that center of excellence. I'm going to be going over a quick use case of implementation of what we did with the approach that we outlined for the audience center of excellence, and some quick things that we can do to scale going forward. Okay, so moving into the vision of audience center of excellence, what's the purpose and all, right? So the key four pillars that drive it are the business priorities, right? What does the business want? The KPIs that the business wants to accomplish, and just planning and plotting everything around the use cases. So whatever the KPIs are, identify the use cases that converge to those KPIs and make it audience led first, because we are primarily talking about the audience center of excellence. The same can be applied to other COEs as well across the organization, but as far as audience is concerned, that's what we do, right? And when we talk about use case, right, that's a repeatable model that you can keep on iterating over, right? So it starts with use case identification, planning, and prioritizing the use cases that you would implement, executing them, and then most importantly, measure all those use cases. I'm going to be talking a little bit in detail in further slides for that. Share your learnings, and then plan to reiterate, right? That's basically what the purpose of an audience CEO is, and it goes hand in hand with your CDP implementation, because that's how you can grow and scale your CDP in an effective way. Some of the practical approaches when it comes to defining audiences, right, is first of all meeting and talking to the people who are stakeholder to define the key and the core audiences for your organization that you want to lean into. And again, it is use case led, right? So it has to be done for every use case that you do. Survey that data that which you're talking to implement for those audiences, if it exists or does not exist in the tools already, right? Map the segments and audiences to specific BUs so that we know, right, which BU is using which audience, and we can have a granular control, but we can effectively scale that as well, right? Confirm the mapping with the leadership, and confirm the mapping with the analytics team, and ensure that your audience that you're creating is measurable. You can track it. Migrate audiences from existing systems if it is required, right? Again, we have been talking about federated audiences, so you might not to migrate the entire data. You can just migrate the key data points, right, and build those audiences within RTCDP. and operationalize by adding those audiences, you know, by intakes in your Workfront or any other tool that you use to manage your request, right? And review and revise as you need. In order to build the audience center of excellence, it's very important to have an alignment and collaboration with broader team, right? So what you would need is you would need to identify key people in your organization, specifically change champions, people who are going to be advocating for you, right? Collaborating with you in order to build this audience center of excellence so that their teams can also benefit from that. So these people are going to be very critical for you to scale this audience center of excellence. So these people could differ from organization to organization, but generally these could be your project sponsors, your technical teams, analytics team, campaigns, marketing leaders, the product managers. So you need to identify who and what those roles are, that are going to help you scale this audience center of excellence. And it's important that when you identify those people, you have a very good communication plan, right? So you start with use cases, what you're going to implement, have conversations with them that, hey, we are implementing a use case. These are the new capabilities that we are trying to implement in RTCDP. For example, federated audience is one. You can talk to those people. How are you going to benefit from that? What can we do, and what can we bring so that some of the use cases that are of importance to the organization can be met, right? So communicate them on what you are doing, how you are doing, and what the benefit it brings, right? It increases your revenue, your audience size grow, you are able to have better efficiency in collaborating with your marketing, right? So you can create newsletters, you can create email communications, whatever the best way you feel like for your organization. It's very important to have that continuous information channel set up so that people are on board with you for that. And then we're going to also be looking very specifically into the foundational data collection. With CDP, it's always important to collect data, right? So we need to ensure that all the data points are being collected, right? Based on the use case that you're trying to solve, right? Set clear goals for each of the audience. So when we are creating audiences, we have very specific campaigns in mind, that we are creating these audience for this specific campaign. It's going to drive your sales, or is it going to increase signups? Is it going to increase registrations? Or if you're in auto industry, is it for test drives or whatnot, right? Define the KPIs that you will use to measure the benchmarks, like how was your campaign tracking improved when you used audience X versus when you were not doing it with audiences defined from the KPIs, right? Set a campaign time frame wherever you are running. If you're running in AJO, Target, campaigns, or any other tool of your choice, right? Define the time frame that you're going to be running that campaign, and once that campaign has completed, create a measurement report out of it. Share it with your key stakeholders so they are aware of what benefits were derived from the audiences that you created, and what we can do to enhance them going forward. Okay. Now coming to implementation, this is an example for what we did for one of our clients. So it highlights a 3-month pilot. Started off with use case definitions and requirements in the first week, and we created the solution design architecture, integrated the data layer, started with audience building, and activated the use case. So if you look at the feed that was set up, was this was derived around marketer use case. So we started defining and creating schema for marketer within RTCDP and AEP. We collected a lot of data from different tables from marketer, combined them with the web data based on the key identities. So we stitched all those identities together of web and marketer data. Then we started building audiences from that data. There were general audiences, and then there were categorized audiences for areas of interest, specific areas of interest on the site. And then we deployed those audiences on the activation channel. We deployed some of the audiences on target. We also shared those audiences and some attributes back with Marketo so that they could use that for their own marketing automation campaign. And in this 3 months pilot, we also implemented Web SDK. So, with that structure in mind, we were able to accomplish all of that in such a short time span. Some of the key best practices when it comes to audience activation is to hash the identifiers that you are collecting. Again, we need to keep users anonymous and not share those. Again, you could have your labeling and governance practices around it, but it's important to do that. When we are working with the campaign teams, it's important that we communicate the audience count that we're going to be sharing with them for each of the audiences that are created, right? And we start slow, start with a test audience to confirm whether the activation has been successful. Again, you can start for one destination for a use case, or there could be a use case that require multiple destinations to be set up. So you can create all those audiences and destinations within RTCDP and have a sample audience to confirm whether the configuration is successful. And you can explore alternatives if the destination is not available. Now Adobe is expanding its marketplace for destinations, but still there are ways to do it through ad cloud or through API. So if you cannot find them in the marketplace or as a listed destination, you can explore that. You can also use extensions and share the real-time data. You can uh, leverage on Facebook API like APIs when you are working with event stream data directly from Adobe. And when you have implemented an audience center of excellence and your first use case has been met and your results have been shared and people are excited, that's the perfect time to think about scaling the audience center of excellence. So when it comes to scaling, you could have your own workflows in your organization. This is a sample workflow that you could leverage, right? It starts with the request that would be coming from multiple business units or different teams, right? So you can map back to the use cases. Again, those are the starting point, which use case they are coming back from, are those use case prioritized or not prioritized. And then you need to figure out if the capabilities exist in your customer data platform today or not, right? So if the capabilities exist, you can build audiences, you can share those audiences with the destinations, you can create reporting and dashboards, right? If you're leveraging CJA, you can leverage that. If you're not using CJA or using something else, you can share and provide reports out of that platform. If the capabilities do not exist, then again we go back to the drawing board, right? And what we need to do, right? Prioritize all these requirements. Again, the use cases prioritize, but how much funding is going to take? Is it a new data source? Is the capability complex or easy to achieve? What's the time frame? So all those things come into consideration when we are prioritizing the scope for the new capabilities. You could be working with your internal technical team, right? Your IT team, your enterprise data architecture team, your legal team, to make sure you are able to integrate all the solutions that you want in a compliant way. um, you know and you could also be collaborating with the existing partners, right? You could be working with martech teams that could help you in defining the strategy out for that. So once that is done, you can also use to expand use case by use case basis, start collecting more and more data, right? Identify the gaps in the use case, continue to consolidate the data points that you are collecting. uh, Keep on expanding and enriching the profiles. The more profiles that you have, the better it is. The more real time it is, the better it is. Add additional destinations. So start slow and keep on adding new destinations based on what your organization is working with. If it is coming from marketing or if it is coming from other campaign teams, based on that you can prioritize that, and you can then execute your omni-channel audience led strategies, right? So some of the key takeaways that I would like to say that you can go out and start doing is, start slow and simple by showing results based on use cases, right? keep on adding more data points in your CDP architecture, build on that, and start with insights on the activation as well. Create dashboards that can be shared with the broader team, so that they know how the audiences are scaling, and what the benefits are in terms of the KPIs that the business priorities were tying back to. In terms of approach to build the audience center, align with your CEO direction that you define. Align with the key stakeholders, collaborate with them. Avoid having duplicate audience. A lot of time, there are different teams. They come in and they start using the platform, and they start creating audiences that are not unique. There are always audiences with a different name. So that is why having a taxonomy where you can put audiences based on BUs and based on use cases could be very beneficial when it comes to managing audiences within CDP. In terms of the size as well, there is a limit always on your license on how many profiles you can have. So make sure that you don't uh, repeat or duplicate the audiences, and use what exists today. And the tactics that you could use to maximize the value out of it is, currently if you are using a solution like Adobe Audience Manager, so cookies are not going away, so they're still there. So you can also work with Audience Manager and start leveraging that as another activation channel, or also bring in the segments from Audience Manager to AEP, or AEP to Audience Manager. The connection works both ways. So define the data that is needed to build the audience, as well as the destination and the extensions that you could use in your journeys. And you can also leverage AI to increase your efficiency. You can use AI for copies. You can use AI for your campaigns. So leverage AI, and with the AI agents, it's going to be a little bit more easier navigating your world around AEP. uh, and yeah, that is that. I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome job, Tarun. Um, you touched on so many things that I think we're all very close to. um, I don't know. Are you able to see the Q&A section, Tarun? I don't want to
Yes,
steal your thunder here.
I can. I just want to make sure that I don't step into a question that was intended for federated audience. But let me start. Uh, So I'll take this question from Michael, which is, as a part of this process of defining audience, do you differentiate between which ones should be siloed on platform versus which one should come from CDP slash FAC, or do you generally believe every audience could originate from CDP? For example, sending event data to Meta ads allow Meta to identify anonymous users based on IP addresses, click IDs, and other non-PII factors. There are also the ability to create lookalikes. So generally building a top of funnel page view audience um, might have a larger size in the ad tech platform. However, the new marketers have audiences that are split between multiple platforms. Wow, it's a long one. So I don't believe that every audience should originate from CDP. Again, it is important that you identify the audiences that you need to activate on real time, right? And if your destinations need it to be originating from CDP, if you do not need, to be running on real time, you can have it in other systems as well, right? It's more meant from the real time perspective. That's what I believe. And again, sending event data to Meta ads allow Meta to identify anonymous users. Again, you can use event stream if you want to not provide these identifiers like IP address or user agent, so that they can identify anonymous users. Does that answer the question, Michael, or missing some part of it? Okay. um There's a question from Stefan. It says, how do you handle data layer implementation that are off spec and cause project delays and force concessions, especially when you are in a consulting role without direct authority over the development team? Yes. So when we are working with data layer, again, my approach towards a data layer is break data layer down in two parts, right? One of the part of the data layer is essential in, managing and meeting the KPIs, right, that the business wants to measure, right? And when we are working with the dev teams, we clearly provide you know the business priorities in line, that these are the business priorities that are going to be achieved from this data layer. If it is not delivered, then the business doesn't have an insight into these key important data points. So if we can do it directly within launch, and I have done a lot of dirty work within a lot of tag managers in the past, so we would do it, but I would not love to do it. If there is, it should come from top down, in my in my opinion. Again, another question from Michael.
Stefan, feel free to come off mute. I saw
Yeah.
you had your hand up if you want
Yes,
to
yes,
riff
of
off
course.
of that.
No, Tarun, I think your point is very interesting because the way I've done it historically is I kind of splice it by use case, but you're saying that you're splicing the data layer to sort of define it by priority. Could you elaborate? Because I find that fairly interesting.
Right. So, when we are working with data layer, specifically in terms of web, right? Web use cases do not change. The KPIs, when you are defining your website, the data layer starts when you're defining your website, when you're creating the design. At that point in time, we would talk to the product owners, and we will also talk to the business. What's most important? That's the part of the solution design work that we do, right? When we are coming in to design any system from tag management standpoint, we identify all the KPIs. It doesn't matter the use case, because it's just one channel, right? The use case could come from marketing teams later on, that, hey, we want this data or we want that data. But when you're talking about web, that's just one channel. So you might add more features to your website. At that point in time, we can prioritize based on use cases, right? Depending on the this level of support that you have or you have to provide.
Good, that answers the question perfectly. Thank you, Tarun.
So there's another question from Michael. It's from my experience, I'll usually try to see if there is a way to get data in another way first as an interim solution. For example, can I transform the existing payload or enrich it outside the website code implementation, or I can pull the data from the direct integration source. Doesn't require code change. Otherwise, as a consultant, I will usually build a spreadsheet with prioritization on which events are most important to adopt. Yeah, definitely. I mean, having a prioritization is very important. Otherwise, a lot of teams start reaching out, especially when you create all that excitement. When you're building a COE, you will see a lot of teams start reaching out to you with different sort of requests. So you would definitely be in a position where you cannot do all of those things at once, right? So you will have to create some sort of a process to define what you will be doing right now, and based on the prioritization, you will work accordingly.
On Michael's first point, I would like to worry caution, because temporary measures often become permanent, and I've been burned by that, where we've had things that were missing from data layer. It's like, we're going to pull it from this other place, and then later on we realize that this other place also has problems, first off, and second off, the client didn't have the budget to actually fix the data layer and make an actual proper permanent solution, and you're sort of stuck with that. You're holding the stick, and you can't get it out of your hands, and that's always a little bit scary.
Okay. Rafael says, on the data layer question, I thought you would answer with some magic, but you just confirm what we know. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't give you any magic here, but yeah, that's just the reality. I mean, being in the consulting, like most of the times magic is, not with what you bring. It's, what you can, spark within the organization. It's mostly the other way around. Okay. I hope I have answered all the questions. If I have missed any, please feel free.
I'd love to build off of Michael's prior note about, how do you differentiate when you should use CDP versus FAC, or how do you hone in on where those audiences should originate from? I think a couple of high level things, and again, this is all going to be client specific, but some things that we've encountered at Subway is, is really locked down by the guardrails that Adobe imposes on all things audiencing. So for folks that are using a lot of streaming audiences, for example, you got to consider throughput, right? If you need to act on data in near real time fashion, and you're blowing past the 500 audience limit for streaming evaluation, you got to consider that, right? So and maybe that justifies a deeper dive on, well, do we really need these audiences to all be streaming, or do we really need these audiences to be orchestrated through AEP, or can some of this live in CDP? So I think at a high level, it's just a very interesting topic, and it's so different depending on the client, on how you navigate that. Again, it goes back to the requirements, right? Like, do you actually need this information to be streaming? Do you actually need this information to be edge? Or can we evaluate some of this on the batch, right? So I think there's a lot of questions in the chat around audiencing. Maybe we do a deep dive on kind of audience orchestration for one of the in-person sessions. But I love that question, Michael, because it really gets the juices flowing on there's multiple ways to go about it, right? So thanks for that.
I think what would be helpful, Tom, is to just have like a live audience poll. I'm sure that Dinesh and David would have examples of how they're also looking at location MDU data along with other profile attributes and building together an audience for one of their use cases. So I'd love to see a live example of that, how that is done, maybe in the next set of sessions.
Sure. I love that idea. Yeah. So just some housekeeping stuff. First of all, great job, Tarun. That was a really awesome breakdown. There was a lot of great content in there. I think what I'd like to do, if you guys are okay on time, I want to just do a couple of quick housekeeping things with this being our first session. I'll share my screen really quickly. 1 second here. So many of you have already done this, but I wanted to just highlight. So we have our AEP New York chapter page. So if you do either a quick Google search, or you can get to this AEP augs.adobe.com from a quick Google and then go to the chapters page. But especially for folks that are on this call that want to make this a regular part of their routine, make sure you click the little join button at the top of the page here to actually join the chapter. And then also from this page, you can get to any of the events that we've had posted. So here's our event that we're in right now. Quick shout out for October 30th. We have our first in-person event. So we'll be doing our, I guess this is our inaugural virtual. We'll have an inaugural in-person event at Adobe headquarters in New York City. And I think what we'll do is we'll kind of use this session as a springboard to get a sense for topics that you guys want to do deeper dives on. I think we had covered some great topics today. Looks like we have some questions that we could potentially deep dive further into for some real in-person discussion. And then I'll also share this. We have our survey link. Now you guys are going to get this over email for anybody that's attended, but feel free to get a shot of that on your phone or on your device. We have our next event, like I said, in New York City. This takes like just a few minutes to fill out. But the big thing here, and we can open this to discussion, is your guys' feedback is going to be really critical to the justification and the success of this user group, right? So come with topics, come with questions. If you're dealing with a particular problem with a client that you're working with or with the company that you represent, we've probably encountered those same problems, right? So I think it'd be a great opportunity to kind of get a sense of like, what are the themes? Are you guys having a lot of the same questions that we're having? And I think that'll help drive some of the in-person discussions, some of the topics that we cover. and it will help us kind of curate what those workshops look like when we have our in-person meetings. So please do take a moment to fill the survey out. It's really going to help us kind of determine where this goes, and use your voice to play a role there. We do have some time now. Mindful that people are probably jumping from meeting to meeting like everybody else does every day. We're late on a Thursday here on the East Coast, so if you guys have any other topics that you want to just riff on or throw out to the group, maybe even pitch a potential topic for our in-person meeting in October, would love to open the floor to any thoughts, any comments. Did you like this format? Was this terrible? But yeah, I'd love to open the floor to any questions or any thoughts from the group.
I think Karthik kind of started like an interesting topic in the chat there with FAC and kind of different teams kind of touching the whole audience development now on like what are people doing with like let's say like control over that, like in terms of teams having control, or like is there different teams that people are actually like working and developing audiences and things like that. I would potentially like to open this question to everyone around us and see what people are doing in their organization. Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I think it varies a lot, similar to what we've been saying, like from client to client. But what I'll typically see, especially across enterprise orgs, is the team that's owning the MarTech, the team that's owning the CDP, building a lot of the CDP-based audiences, because let's be real, as much as we never want to really use SQL when we don't have to, as much as we want to just rely on the data being easy, that's not always the case. And so sometimes it's just easier to make sure, hey, this is the audience I want. Let's make sure we get you the right one. That said, though, especially when it comes to passing, the real-time event data downstream to vendors like Facebook ads, I think in those cases it makes sense for the marketers that are managing the ads to actually go in and then create those audiences, considering those platforms typically make it a lot easier for non-technical users to do that. And similar to what I brought up earlier, the platform audiences tend to have more users in them since they can identify a bigger group of people basically.
I think that's great feedback all around. Anybody else want to volunteer kind of on their personal experiences there? That's okay. There's no wrong answers on this one. So let's do this. First of all, I think, let me make sure, I'll just kind of take a step back, make sure we didn't have any other questions in the chat. Okay. I think this is a great kickoff, guys. Love seeing some new faces, some familiar faces. Please do fill that survey out. We'll kind of use those survey answers and responses to curate our in-person meetings. And I think what's great about this group is we can all kind of riff off of each other and maybe help each other with solutions, or even help each other architect the next thing that the clients are doing, right? So thank you guys so much. Karthik, anything that you wanted to end on, or didn't want to?
No, I think love this word that you use, riff, or what I call P2P, peer-to-peer, which is so much important. Like the sooner we catch some things early on and pass it on to some of the folks who here are strategists or architects or coming from various business areas and functions, I think that'll do a lot of good for community and everyone who's supporting AEP and sharing feedback to Adobe, which is critical. And so hope to hear from all of you soon in the next meetups.
Very well said. I think one line of thinking too that I alluded to earlier, but I really want to have hit home with you guys is this is technically not an Adobe group. It's an Adobe group, right? But it's the users that are going to drive this. So think of this as an opportunity to maybe step away from the Adobe curtain for a second And let's use this group to really support each other, right? We're all here because we care and we want to learn from the other expertise and the other like-minded folks in the region. So just a mindset maybe type of thing that I really wanted to drive home. We have some smart people in this room as it becomes very obvious. So let's all tap into each other's expertise. And I think the beauty of these user groups is they're only as good as we make it. So I love the engagement, love the questions that folks are throwing out there, and we'll build on this for our in-person sessions. Looking at doing some in-person networking with you all, and kind of having a little more fun. These virtual meetings are tricky to have fun, right? Because we're all staring at screens. But we'll get some good in-person time and some networking, and feel it out from there. Awesome.
Cool. Hey, Tom,
All
can
right.
I ask a question to the group just out of curiosity? In terms of requirements, how do we feel about use cases and stuff for clients and projects? I mean, am I the only one that's seeing significant gaps in terms of understanding what really CDP is, what audience and segmentation is and delivers value? I mean, I know this is a big topic. We only got a few more minutes, but I mean, let's talk about this challenge.
Michael, I saw your hand up. You want to jump in on that one?
It is honestly the thing that plagues me the most because, I think similar to what we've said in the chat, not always does the client know what they actually want to do with it. My personal approach to it has just always been start with the easiest use cases because businesses just care about money, right? So immediately off the top of the head, research pixels, boom, paid media optimization, super easy use case. Say, oh, it'll save on page speed because now you're taking all these pixels off the site. And so I start with like the easiest wins first, and then I try to sell on the bigger vision of, hey, now that we have all this orchestrated data, we can use this to enrich loyalty programs. And the issue with that, though, is that actually is a marketing strategy part of it. That's where you have to really collaborate more in depth. So I don't always focus on those use cases in great depth when I first introduce a program. I'll instead try to just do like the low-hanging fruit. Especially when I work with retail or e-com, I'll say, hey, most of the time you guys have the same schema. You guys are using Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Salesforce. It doesn't matter. Everything's an add to cart, a purchase. Let's start with the simplest way just to get value as soon as possible. Get your ad networks on there, and then go from there, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. First principles. That's the idea.
I think it's a super interesting topic, Rich, and I'm sure we all have horror stories from different lenses, right?
Sometimes it's other ways around too. Like, I mean, they really do not need CDP to implement a use case, but they still want to implement it because it's either coming up from the leadership that they have to go a certain route. So in that case, like, it's very hard to show value from what you're doing within CDP. So it's very important that when we are embarking on the journey for an implementation, we always talk about, hey, how are we going to measure the ROI on this, and how are you going to communicate on the leadership, and what's the ROI on this platform. So that makes them probably think, and if they cannot come up with an ROI, they at least have something that they can go back to their leadership and say that I don't have a way to prove ROI on this. So
I think like the way actually on exactly what Tarun said, right? Like kind of expanding on that. We generally like ask our client, do you really need a Ferrari, or are you okay with the Honda right now? Or, if you've got a Ferrari, which is always good, but do you really need to kind of drive everything to Ferrari? Like if you're going to get a grocery, are you going to get in like a Ferrari to get your groceries? So think about that, right? Like that's the realm which we generally try to put forward. And
well, you do get that VTEC on the
that's
Honda.
that's the beauty of consulting, actually. Sometimes they actually need a Ferrari, but they are willing to pay only for a Honda, and sometimes they only need a Honda, but
isn't that true?
So
That's true.
Well, that's actually been a challenge for me up here in Canada, where I've dealt with many Adobe clients, and a lot of them are still stuck in Adobe Analytics, and then they see the price tag behind CGA and RTCDP, and they balk. And when I mean bulk, I mean all four letters of the word. They bulk really hard. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge to get experience in these platforms. And this is why I think this group is interesting, because you have people from different backgrounds bring in use cases that I don't usually work on.
Yeah,
think
that's
that
helpful.
there's
Most
an
of the
interesting
clients that we
topic
have
there
seen,
too.
migrating from analytics to CJ are coming out of compliance. They are healthcare, organizations.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Truth about it. I mean, either they are coming out of compliance or they have a real use case that they want CJ to solve. So
Yeah, CCJ has been a bit of a challenge because clients kind of see it. The users at least are like, hey, I have Adobe Analytics. Can you copy and paste that on CGA? And CGA is a very different dynamic to Adobe Analytics.
Mhm.
I think part of that interesting approach there from how do I justify the price is also okay, if we're even going to entertain CJA, what does the roadmap mean for us from a pricing model standpoint to get off of analytics? Or are we going to keep an analytics around for a period of time and they're going to coexist? Or
Yeah.
some of those considerations are well, maybe CJA is a easier pill to swallow if that means analytics goes away, and then kind of diving back to your topic, Rich, I think for my experience at least, so much of diving into business requirements has been you gotta stay surface level, especially when you're talking to the business users. With CDP being as nuanced and as technical as it is, how do you translate that to somebody that's not technical, and how do you translate the value of that? I think for at least my personal experience, it's been a lot of well, you said that you wanted this, but did you know you could do this too? Right. And kind of acting as not just a requirements taker, but a requirements suggester, and doing that balancing act. I'm sure we all live that, right?
Yeah,
We all live that on a day-to-day basis. So.
Well, what we see a lot is just when we step into clients with an existing Adobe investment, whether it be AEP or AEM for that fact, when they're not using it appropriately. So I don't know how many CDPs we walked into where they're just using it as a data lake and connecting it to CJA as a data view. So there's that. But then also just their fundamental legacy way of looking at data and analytics for reporting versus what you can do with a CDP, right? So the maturity level that we see with some of the stakeholders in some of these companies, they just can't. It's hard for them to kind of understand the change management of what this actually is and what audience first is versus everything else. So yeah, it's an opportunity for all of us, right, as consultants and experts in this field to help guide them. But I just more of a therapy session that I'm not the only one seeing this kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, I'm not sure how helpful this would be, but I know we don't have the time for it today, but maybe one of these days, I'm not gonna be able to make the in-person on the 30th, but next virtual meet probably. I have this deck that I use to explain to non-technical users at enterprise level CPGs, because that's usually a nightmare. From my experience, trying to explain something non-technical to them, where it basically just breaks down, this is what this is, and if you give someone an understanding of what an event actually is, this is something that happens. You explain a transaction Stripe, for example. I found that at least that makes it a lot easier. It's okay, so I can't combine, the inventory data of the last 30 days with CDP data, technically, right? It helps them understand, okay, so these are things that people are doing. Oh, I know what my customers do, and it gets the brain's juices flowing that way.
Michael, that's a good idea. Yeah, just a level set. I always call it Adobe explained, right? When you just have to take away a lot of the buzz that the army of salespeople at Adobe will do in terms of selling and painting this big magic picture. It's no, this is the reality of what this is, right? Marketo is an email tool, right? CDP is data and audiences. Target is on-site personalization, right? It's those kind of things. So that's really helpful.
You will have a hard time explaining journey orchestration or campaign orchestration or optimizer.
Yeah, it's that replaces
decisioning
target.
Campaign.
Yeah.
We want AGO, but we don't know why. We think it sounds fancy. I've had that. No joke.
Oh yeah, no, that's exactly right. That they do want it, even though they don't have CDP or audience or segmentation, which is a dependency of that. They want it, right?
The client that we have has got both V8 and AJO, and every time, whenever there's a new use case, they wanted real time, they wanted this, they want to do it with AJO now, but guys, you've got both the systems, you have to utilize it at the end of the day, and then start thinking about it. We keep on kind of giving them reality checks of what is feasible, not feasible, at the same time what should be what platform actually does better. Like look at that, and then let's look at the use case first, and then decide the platform, rather than deciding the platform first and then looking at the use case.
Right. How often? Let me answer this question: are most of your use cases like batched, or are they real time on edge in terms of segmentation and?
They're usually always batched, Dinesh, when it comes
Exactly.
to our aspect. Real time CDP is like such a buzzword. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
it's never real time. They want it real time, but they don't realize. I mean, I came into the same client we're talking about here with Dinesh, and when I started supporting from audience perspective, like they have so many audiences that they created that are created as streaming audiences. And then you look at where the data is coming from, and it's batch data. And it's like, what are you doing? That doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like I find that in most cases, even if like, hey, you were able to send every audience real time, is the platform you're sending it to actually then processing it in real time? Most of the time. Like Facebook isn't taking that audience immediately and then just putting it straight into the ads within seconds. Yeah. That's, so I find most of the time that like the CDP's core function of sending events, that's all the real-time use case you need. Like your loyalty program, it integrates with your CDP, you send the downstream event, and then that happens in real time. But as far as like an audience update goes, like there's a few use cases, but they're so niche to have them real time, basically.
Most of the real times that we work with are around on-site personalization, and some of the campaigns that are event driven, right? And other than that, it's as it's been mentioned before, like the data that they are creating is coming from batch. So even if you're creating real time audience, that the data is not accurate. Doesn't reflect it.
Yeah. Can I ask one more?
So some of the real time we've been doing is for cart abandonment, app download, and things like that. So very niche.
But yeah, well, that would make sense, right? Because you wouldn't want that
Yeah.
batch. You would want to have a pretty high latency or a short latency just to, try to convert them from an abandonment.
Yeah. But even on that, be like an event basically still, instead of like an audience, like an event sent to Braze or Klaviyo.
That's a good point. I know this kind of, I don't know where this blends the topic, but field-based stitching in CJA with replay windows. Do you guys have why doesn't this work? And it just doesn't work with 7 days. I mean, there are certain clients maybe in the the B2C retail space that makes sense. But do you guys find any value in that?
Well, we've done the cross-channel analytics is what they call it, right? It just does a retrospective 7-day look back. Right. And what it does is it kind of increases the match rate of unauthenticated users to like going and stitching back. There is some value to it because what we're relying on initially is through some stitch process, you are converting, let's say, ECID to your org-based customer ID. But with this field stitching, with the CCA, it just does another level of stitching for most likely in a retrospective manner. 7 days back, they may have logged in at one point of time. And so we've seen some increase in match rates. We also seen some increase in match rate with the first party ID cookie. I'm not sure if you've built anything around that. So I think a combination of those could help get you to understanding like they were guest users at one point of time, but also logged in at some point of time, and we're able to recognize that individual and be able to target them.
Yeah, specifically, it matters a lot in the the vertical that you are looking at, right? So, for example, some of the customers, they have a longer sales period, right? Where people come in, they don't make an immediate decision of buying. And that's just the part of it. Like it will take 2 months to 3 months to actually make that sales decision, right? So in those kind of scenarios, it makes sense, right, to combine, and it's not too much of a longer look back window. When you're working with retail clients that have like immediate real time use cases, and they want you to act now, in those cases I don't think there is too much of value, because after 3 days or 4 days they have already purchased from somewhere else if they have not purchased now.
Good point.
I mean, even just to echo that a little bit, I think it really also like everyone said, depends on vertical, but when it comes to cross-device, I think that's one of the biggest benefits there. Someone starting their journey coming from a Facebook ad on mobile and then coming back to desktop. So being able to then track, okay, well, they entered in their email at checkout on mobile, but then abandoned. But now when we know they came back through desktop, that actually helps a lot when it comes to basically figuring out the user journey and attribution. And so I definitely say it's a useful use case, at least for that front. But like everyone else said, if the customer's already gone at that point, they're not coming back in the next 7 days at least.
Really great question, Rick. I think that maybe we use that as a springboard for an in-person talk too, because I think there's a lot of different feedback depending on the client that we may see differ in that area. Especially as we look at different use cases, because I think of Subway's use cases and they're probably very different from what some of the folks in this room are experiencing. So really great topics, guys. I couldn't have asked more for this kickoff event. Thank you guys so much. I know we're at time. Let's have a great in-person quote unquote kickoff in October. Looking forward to seeing some of you, I hope. And, please do take a moment to fill out the survey if you haven't already. I think we can probably wrap things up, make sure, give people an opportunity to go fill up a cup of coffee